So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try and summarize what we just heard, and in fact, I'm going to do something a little bit differently than what I planned. But first, I'm from the institute we call ICTAS, and I have to give a commercial because I come for free to Sunil. So what we are is we're really about trying to help Sunil do what we're doing here, is to grow this initiative from small seed research that he started down in the basement of Kelly Hall, where I work, years ago, actually far before that. But we made some investments in him in time and space over the years, and we're going to continue to do that to try and help grow this into an ERC and beyond, hopefully. So, this was our agenda, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about some things that jumped out at me. And I am not an expert by any means, and so you can correct me on these if you like, but I'm just going to throw out some thoughts that I heard again and again and again that really resounded with me. So the context is we're in an environment where there are these overarching challenges, and they're like sea level rise and climate change and drought and moving populations. And at the same time, we have these disruptive technologies that are converging together that gives us an opportunity that if we use these properly, that we have the opportunity to solve some of these challenges. So that's the context that I see. And as Gigi said, it's about connecting the dots. So again and again, I heard the challenge of workforce. Again and again, I heard the idea of resilience and measuring that resilience. And how do we measure that, and how do we grade ourselves as we move forward? A lot of talk about collaboration and communities of practice and some of the barriers to that. Costs, again, understanding the costs and valuation and the price of water. Again and again, I heard that. The challenge is stakeholder engagement. How do we get the right people around the table? How do we decide when to engage them, and how do we engage them? Regionally aggregated and curated data. Regionally aggregated and curated data. We heard that regional approach again and again, but that comes with some challenges, right? So some of the challenges are, how do we scale? How does it work for small utilities and big utilities? And what is the governance under that? And how do we aggregate that fragmented data over boundaries that we don't really understand at this point? So there are a lot of things. I really want to appreciate the time that you all spent today and the energy that went into this, because I learned a lot, and it really helped me to understand the space a little bit better. So what I'd like to do now is just spend a few minutes and at a very high level do a SWOT analysis. So we're going to talk about strengths, which are the internal advantages we have over our competitors, the weaknesses, the things that are advantages to our competitors, and then opportunities and threats, which are on the outside. If we look at it this way, let's see up here. I got a pointer, don't I? That work? Yeah. Can you see that? So up there on the top, those are things that we're going to want to emphasize. The strengths and the opportunities are the things that we're going to develop into win themes. So things that we're going to hit on again and again in that proposal to explain to the NSF why they need to give us a lot of money. And then in the bottom, these are the weaknesses and threats. These are the things that we need to address somehow. We need to mitigate or eliminate, or at least find a way to de-emphasize in our proposal. And again, if you look at it, strengths and weaknesses are things that are internal to our team, and opportunities and threats are external to our team. And so let's start by talking about, where does climate change fall in this? Yes, sir. There's a very good question. Okay, so there are probably going to be about 120 proposals, for pre-proposals for ERCs. Sunil, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
About 120 proposals for ERCs, and they're all over the map. The same pot of grant money. Yes, sir. Yes. So the idea of this analysis is, what do we do so we win this money so we can go off and do some things? That's the question, right? And so, go ahead.
We are not just competing in water or civil engineering. We are competing with cybersecurity, medical, brain, and all those kinds
Materials.
of right materials.
Cyber.
Right.
All sorts of artificial intelligence. Anything you can think of, there will probably be ERCs out there. And so the emphasis again is on convergence of technologies and making a societal impact.
So I think the biggest strength we have is we touch every single person every single day, 24/7. And nobody else does.
Is that true? I mean, I'm just asking because
Every single person that passes through the city of Portland drinks, touches, flushes water. And I think that's true in the United States. And George, I stole this line from my buddy George, the former head of DC Water, who's really articulate about this. We touch every person all the time, every day, and the medical profession doesn't do that.
What about people on wells and septic tanks?
People don't, so to go off what he says, well, it's the strengths we have and the other one's weaknesses. You don't have water and sewer, you don't have anything. You ain't doing brain surgery because you don't have water, you don't have any sewer. You're not doing any processing or anything. So we've seen if you, business or anything, you're not, it's a main core. It's, you can go without power, but you can't go without water.
I'll chime in too. We just across the board agreed it's the most fundamental resource in the world. I came from academic world, and all the grants that were funded, I said it's the most fundamental resource on Earth. People from air argued that you need oxygen to survive, but just.
I don't think there'll be an air ERC, so we're probably
all right,
okay.
Hello. Yeah, I would like to add to the strengths, and I don't know exactly how to articulate this, but there is a coming global water crisis, and this is necessary to avert it.
Okay, so that's that.
Opportunity, sorry.
Is it,
An opportunity, sorry.
okay. Great. What else do we have as a strength?
So your climate change, when you talk about climate change, it'll affect us the most more than
Is that
any
also
other.
an opportunity, or is that a strength? We'll put it here.
yeah,
At
climate.
some level, it's not all that important. But what are the characteristics of our team in our proposal and our topic?
If we can articulate this correctly, I think having that industry, academia, and utility together and showcase that we are taking all 3 points of view together is a strength, but it has to be very well articulated.
And we actually operate that way. We operate like we're sitting here. All of us are key to each other. And that may not be true in others.
Yeah, one of the things that
That's huge. And that we need to capture that somehow. We need to capture our track record.
a couple of the NSF grants last year had similar things, but they had like support letters or things superficially saying it. If we are saying it, we have to actually come up with a construct that is a working construct that shows it. Otherwise, it loses value.
Right. And we've got some things that we can do, I think. Other strengths, characteristics of this team.
I think our fundamental strength is we are critical infrastructure that must be resilient for this nation to be strong. If water, wastewater fails, it's not just our industry, it's all the industries that are touched.
Often isn't the mapping that was done that exists with pipeline and infrastructure that have
Oops. Pipe ID. as an exemplar and a foundation, right? Of what we want to do?
Even say the swim center.
I'm sorry?
You'd say even the swim center that Virginia Tech has
Sure.
done is somewhat foundational to what this is about, where we have the same industry, academics, utilities working together, and pipe ID, swim, ed,
Great.
water ID.
Yes, sir.
So we bring the global perspective and also smart cities perspective that interacts with the whole smart water initiatives.
What,
Sir? Credible baseline.
Yes.
Sort of ponying off of that, we have tons of data. So we're not starting from zero. And we're used to collaborating.
Is there anything else we got to catch right now? I'm running out of space.
I have one thing to add. I'd like to note that, right now we're at a time where we're looking at a lot of aging infrastructure reaching the limits of its design life. And looking at something like this is the perfect time, given that we're going to have to rebuild so much, to re-envision what that might look like.
Right, and when Sunil talks about converging, I mean, there's so many things, there's so many reasons why this is the right time to do this, and those are the things we need to capture. Great. Size. We're big. Okay, so we're a big team, and I'll put that as a weakness too.
Another strength is the diversity that's in the team.
Okay. So we're a big team and we're a diverse team. Am I keeping going? I got room here. Let's move on to weaknesses. What are the things that we have as a team that are going to be a challenge?
I think just going off on the big team effect, unless we critically show governance, measurements, the big becomes a weakness.
So the next one that would strike my mind as a weakness is that we are fractured, and a little bit on what I mean about that. If compare us to electricity, the grid.
Right.
A transformer in Ohio, suddenly the whole Midwest is out of power. You can blow up my water system and it only affects us. So we are fractured, but that does not mean we can not necessarily get our ducks in a row.
I think one of the big challenges, and we were talking in the corner here about it, is we don't have like a guaranteed outcome. Like what is the end state? Are we reducing rates by 10%, or what is the outcome of this center in a very quick sentence? What are we actually providing?
How are we going to accept cultural change?
Say that one more time.
How are we going to implement cultural change in the industry? Because the industry has been very conservative, and this will be a major.
Okay, so we have a conservative industry, right?
Isn't that a threat?
Maybe. But it's also a characteristic of our team because we have industry members, so maybe a little bit of both. Yes, sir.
Challenges with the fully implementing the framework, because we have different jurisdictions and interests within a watershed.
I'm going to fully and credible implementation. Don't grade my penmanship or my grammar, please.
Don't.
How about our speed? We move at this We move very slow.
We move slow.
Yeah, highly regulated also a weakness.
Say that again.
Highly regulated.
Highly regulated, huh?
Climate uncertainty.
That's a weakness for us?
Politically, it is.
We can show that sense of urgency.
Could we say something about a weakness is the lack of team members that are in government and can make, well, I know we have EPA but like elected officials.
Political clout.
What's that?
Political clout.
Yes, that's a
So lack of elected officials on team? Is that what we're looking for?
political clout, is that what you said? Yeah.
Does NSF allow electeds to be part of a proposal? I don't think so. Yeah.
They're stakeholders.
Yeah, they can be part of governing or stakeholder. I mean, because we are creating organizations, so that may not be part of the proposal, but part of the governing.
Yeah.
Now, Sunil and John, do you guys have any idea if any other water proposals are going?
Water proposal? There will be other water, but not really what our concept is smart one water, no.
So there is another proposal out of Virginia Tech that's data-based, but it's all about runoff from a watershed and impact on water quality in the ocean, really, and the streams. So
I think
it's the bad news is it's about big data and water. The good news is if you read it carefully, you see, oh, this is very different.
So another weakness is lost.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What?
Okay, that's a
There's
good,
a traitor in the room. That's a weakness. Conflict of
No,
interest.
which one? That STAN one is now, it will be part of us. Thanks.
What's that?
That STAN one you are talking, the STAN proposal?
Is Stan in ours?
Yeah, but he is, they will come with us.
Okay.
Betting Sunil will win.
So one of the weaknesses was already pointed out by NSF, which is the lack of the agricultural community, the USDA and so on and so forth. And we did identify what else and who else. So might look to that as some of the weaknesses.
Right. In the current form, that is the one criticism we got is that agriculture is not covered very well.
Is that a threat, an opportunity, or a weakness?
So just this year, they passed, I forget the name of the act, but there's an act that AWWA was heavily involved in getting passed underneath the Department of Agriculture that provides grant money to agricultural entities to minimize their impact on watersheds. And AWWA has hatched this training program to train people to go talk about it and try and convince farmers and state ag agencies, and it's done through the state conservation officers. There's a state conservation officer in every state. That might be worth exploring a little bit because we might be able to kind of claim credit for that because the water industry supported it.
So, and a potential opportunity.
Yeah.
And National Rural Water is doing the same thing, NRWA.
What's it called?
National Rural Water, NRWA.
NRWA.
Also, we have a chance, there's an opportunity to change the quality of place and life for rural systems.
Increase competitiveness of cities.
I'm sorry. I can't. It's very disconcerting because the noise comes from everywhere.
Increasing competitiveness of our urban centers. Or
So that's an opportunity? Is that?
say so.
Okay.
Advancement of technology itself an opportunity.
Say that one more time.
Advancement of technology.
Advancing of a technology.
I think depth of emerging technology capability. It's a weakness. Depth of emerging technology expertise.
Emerging technology is a weakness?
Yeah, the depth that we have. With
Depth.
The depth of emerging technology capabilities. That's a weakness. We don't have the depth of artificial intelligence and other technologies there. If we're looking at a competitive landscape, there's going to be players that's their specialty. They have depth in these emerging technologies. We have not demonstrated that within our
team.
We have the lack of the depth of emerging. Lack of the depth of emerging technology expertise. We don't have.
Yeah. So one of the things that we ought to think about is that something that we ought to look and say we need to add somebody to the team. So
I think
yes, sir. You have one.
Yeah, this could be a strength or an opportunity in that there are new regulations from the America Waters Infrastructure Act. That are recognizing, so Congress has recognized that the importance of water utilities to be more resilient to disasters.
AWIA, is that right?
Yes.
For resilience.
Yep.
Enabling economic development through optimized spend.
That's an opportunity. Right?
I think growing expectations.
I was just gonna.
Growing expectations from the stakeholders.
Is that an opportunity or weakness?
That is opportunity actually. That will. That could be a threat too, but
yes, sir.
I was just going to say something similar to Jim, based on the U.S. One Water Alliance. It says $220 billion in annual economic activity. So if you want to put some numbers to it, economic.
So that there's funding behind this?
No. If we get invested, if we are able to convince this and help continue to have more infrastructure funding in water industry, then the U.S. One Water Alliance says, you have $220 billion worth of annual economic activity that it can boost.
So we have the potential to leverage other money.
Yeah, no, potential to create that economic activity.
To feed economic activity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right there, yeah. 220 billion is what it says, this report.
Yeah, and related to that, I think there's more EPA funding that's going towards disaster mitigation and also FEMA funding. So in the future, I think they'll be able to act on some of the recommendations that come out of this, big data analysis. There'll be concrete projects that can be funded.
Okay.
So another threat I'd put is the competition for federal dollars.
So that's a threat?
Yeah. The competition for federal and state dollars is growing. It's hard for us to get money if you got too many hands in the cookie jar.
Other threats, other things that are outside of us that, we need to pay attention to.
So one threat that might be within, similar to your example about Virginia Tech putting in 2 proposals, is if there are too many teams here on too many proposals.
And I think that the multiple ERCs that are already funded falls into that category. So we saw the 4 ERCs that are already out there. We've got to be able to explain that and how we fit in with that as a center of centers.
Right. So I don't know whether that is threat or not, but one thing is very clear from NSF that this center, the new center, if it is funded, the others shouldn't die. It should complement, and somehow we need to develop a plan so that they...
So we have to tell that story.
We have to tell that story. We cannot say that this center and then now you forget about all existing center.
I think increased cost of services, trends, should be a threat.
The cost of
Services to the citizens or customers. Increased cost of That's a threat, and that's the reason we need to...
So the cost of not being able to enable what we...
Right. From both sides.
Sunil, I'd like to build on what you said about 4 centers, water centers. That could also be a threat. I'm sorry. I'd like to build on what Sunil mentioned about 4 water centers already funded by the ERC. A threat could be that NSF reviewers might say, why would we fund a 5th water center?
Okay, that was not the comment we got from NSF. They said that, yeah, they can fund 5th, but they don't want they don't want to see another Stanford with the same like water reuse.
Right. I'm just saying that if you have 100 proposals, the reviewers might say, we only have 1 or 2 centers that are doing, say, cybersecurity or something like that. But there are already 4 centers focusing on water.
Yeah, okay, I know what you're saying. So there may not be any center in cybersecurity. So priority will go for that, right?
Might. So it could be a potential threat.
Yeah.
And I would say realistically, that's always a threat. The flavor of the day at NSF is always a challenge.
So but the corollary is that you can make that a strength as to why a 5th center is so needed, a center of the centers, because it is what our society really needs.
So an integrating center. So an integrating center of the other 4 to really get the value out of the other 4.
I think that's a good comment. That was kind of running through my head, and I was trying to think how to make that match. So most of the centers seem like they're really science and technology focused in that industry. So if you want to spread, if we're going to actually do the application, then there's 2 other, again, groups we can talk to, and one is really public decision making, optimum decision making in that water industry, and then also on the financial side. So we had several conversations on how, especially in the bond rating, for instance, the bond rating industry and way in which they look at that now, asset management is kind of at a disadvantage. It's not easy to actually do the condition assessment. So I think the opportunity is, how do you also highlight the fact that this center is different, that it actually brings in data and processes to actually make more risk-based decision making embedded in the utilities or the industry.
That's a strength then.
Yeah, built on what he was talking about, the risk of us looking just like the other ones. The opportunity is for us to highlight the fact that not only are we bringing in all the technical wizards, but we're also bringing in the financial and essentially the public policy decision makers. We understand it as a system as a whole if we're going to change it. So again, we can gather all the data and all the technology we want. It's really how you use that data to make improved risk-based decision making. I'm not sure how you want to word that.
Okay, so I said what we've got is tech, financial, decision makers, and a systems approach. Okay, is that good for now?
Let me add one, succession planning. Succession planning.
Succession planning is a weakness?
It'd be, if you, for this grant, getting the universities working, it'll get us more people coming to our industry, so it could be a strength. And it could,
Okay. So this is, so it's a succession planning opportunity. Spelled wrong, but that's all right.
I want to make a note. It can be an integrated succession. So we were talking about how we have a program where we're actually having students, we're paying for students to work at the utility, paying for all of their tuition, and it's basically our direct route for having them then work for us afterwards. So it's not just succession, it can be like an ongoing kind of like recruiting tool that's direct.
Okay. Are we, we're not, yes, sir, go ahead.
So I think in terms of the threats, this issue of succession planning raises the question that I heard actually earlier, which was what comes after, the 10-year or 20-year grant?
So what I hear is the sustainability of the center.
Right. This is something that, private industry or government or, some other entity is going to take ownership of.
That's a huge issue with every ERC, and it's something we will have to address some way. So we will do more of this. We're going to continue to revisit this. We'll probably, go ahead.
Really great opportunity because ASC really rating is really bad. Why did make it great? There's an opportunity to use this raise our.
So that's the grade. We have a D minus, and so I didn't understand. Maybe you can.
D minus for 20 years. What do you think is going to change? This makes it change.
So we have a D minus grade as nationwide. Is that what? So D minus grade is the opportunity to.
We're a D. We're not a D minus.
Okay. So we'll probably refine this a little bit and continue to touch on it every time and get thoughts on it. Where what have we addressed? Maybe we can eliminate some of them, add new things. I do want to talk about what comes next. So we've told NSF that we're going to do 7 of these workshops. And so that brings out the question, how are we going to organize those? Where are we going to do them? What are going to be the themes? Who should attend? What's the format? And so there are bunches of ways that we could approach that. And so we'd like you to think about, what do you think makes sense?
How many years is the funding for?
So 1 year. So we've got to do a proposal. The pre-proposal is due about January next year.
So it would be 7 meetings within 1 year.
It doesn't have to be all 7. I mean, we are thinking of 2 maybe virtual, like WebEx and all those. So 5 definitely we are planning physical.
Okay.
I mean, including this one.
For what's the purpose of the workshops? What's the outcome we're looking for? I think would be.
So that's exactly the question. So
yeah.
And let's I'll go into the second question here, and maybe Sunil, you want to just go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So the key is that we need to discuss is this workshop. The first one, the purpose was to brainstorm ideas and tweak it, the vision. Who is the stakeholder? Second, our thought process again we can change is based on test bed. We want to get more specific now, not just talk high level, but how we will implement these if we are using Miami, say I'm just giving one example. If we are going to use that, then who's the stakeholder, whom should we bring, and what we discuss there. Is it implementation plan? Then in Houston, we are planning to have there, maybe talk about data integration there. So that's, we want to brainstorm what should be the theme, what should be the location, and also the timing is important because the sooner we can get this done, I'm not saying sooner means we have to get done every week, but the sooner we do it, then it will give us enough time. First, we want enough time to digest all what we discussed. There's a lot of stuff was discussed. So now I will sit down with our team to get all these. And also we want to talk logistic, how we do this going forward. Should we create Google Drive? Because you are all part of it now, right? Unless you decide to drop out, but you are all part of this whole team. So we want to put it all, everything, all information, and that's how we will build. So what John is saying is that we want, our wish list is that we have promised to NSF 5 physical workshops and 2 virtual.
And not everybody has to attend all of them.
Right.
So let me give you a potential way we could break this down. So we've got 4 pillars that we've got to address. So we could do the 4 pillars. We could do a research workshop, a workforce development workshop, an innovation ecosystem workshop, and a stakeholder engagement workshop. And then use the other 2 for proposal development. That would be a perfectly reasonable way to do it. And those that are interested in those specific topics and have skin in the game would, make the effort to come either by WebEx or physically, depending on how we work it. Obviously, physically is always better. Yes, sir.
Yeah, John, just a thought. We had a conversation during the break, and one thing you might find coming out of this meeting is that there are some themes or kind of overarching problems that start to emerge. You might want to think about organizing some of the workshops around the problems, and having tried to do this kind of thing in the traditional silos, if you will, I'd kind of caution against, trying to get the government people together, the owners and operators together, and really try to think about, what are the overarching themes, and let's get more of a diverse body of people at those workshops to try to address them.
I think that's a very good point. So what would be some of those themes?
Well, would the workshops try to address some of the weaknesses in the proposal? Is that?
That's exactly what I would think.
Okay, so then we need to put those into buckets and then figure out how to make a cohesive workshop.
Yep.
So one of the ways to think about all this is sort of following on what you just said, is thinking about the uses, right? The uses of this framework. And thinking about creating maybe some kind of storylines or narratives about how this framework might be useful. And if you did that, first of all, it would help, create marketing materials and so forth for your NSF proposal. But secondly, it also would help you think about, what are the aspects that you need to bring in, right? Given that, let's say you focus on a particular type of use or a particular type of storyline, right? So.
Well, let me throw out an idea, is that I think we could probably do the research section tomorrow. Could you write the research section tomorrow? I think you probably could. But one of the things we couldn't do tomorrow is talk about governance and fragmentation and boundaries. I mean, is that one? Is that one of? I mean, that's a huge issue that we've got. If we're going to sell this, I think that maybe that's one. And I don't know how you bundle that together in a meaningful way.
That's why I think you have to try to get people to maybe do some brainstorming on uses, right? And try to think of some specific examples where this framework, might be useful.
Yeah, I agree with going beyond the vision statement. We need to have some specific use cases or outcomes at the watershed level. We talked about resiliency, right? That's one. It could be defined differently for different region, but at least we need to have those overarching for major use cases that we are trying to address, regardless of where and what the watershed is.
Right.
And then that should drive rest of the proposal, and we can, as we get into the details of the proposal, we can address all those. You said we will have 2 workshops dedicated to work on proposals.
We could.
Yeah.
We can structure these 6 any way that makes sense.
The other benefit is that it would also help you think about your experimental test beds that you want to put in place.
So I'm just want to build on what Steve pointed out over here, and it is the user, right? It is the broader impact. If you focus on the broader impact, what does this center really provide as a broader impact to the entire U.S.? I mean, that's where the funding is going to be focused on. How does it really help? And when you understand what the broader impact is, you can refine your vision. You know who the stakeholders are. You know what they want out of it. So you start with the end in mind.
Yes, sir.
Prioritize weaknesses with what is the outcome number 1 on your list? Maybe again, trying to prioritize what kind of things, topics you want to talk about. That goes back to his point, and also.
Do we want to do that?
What's that?
Do we want to try and prioritize our weaknesses?
Yeah, I think we have time. So
Do we have time?
Yeah, we have time.
Okay. So why don't we do this? We'll go down the list.
I just want to throw out one thing before you prioritize, which is, I'll just be quick, is that I think it would be very good to have this be tangible because it's still a little bit squishy, probably in most people's minds, and where this data is coming from and how it's incorporated and how you get some great benefit from it. And some people have talked about, well, maybe describing how it could be used. I wonder if you could even create a little small project kind of thing that tried to address one particular thing, let's say like workforce issues. And so you got, data from EPA regarding brownfield workforce development, and you got data from AWWA about surveys about young people, and you got something else from other utilities, and you begin to combine the data to get a better picture of what the issues really are, and you maybe try something to see what sort of comes out of that analysis to demonstrate something, to show the value of bringing disparate data together, and then you provide that as a real life example on how you can begin to address a very complex issue.
Yeah, and one of the things that I would say is that if we can bring a vignette or 2 to the table to do exactly that, because I do think that there's a lot of, okay, so you have a bunch of data. Well, whether you have the data or not, when I turn on the faucet, water comes out. Who cares? So being able to provide a couple of vignettes, and so I'd like you to think about that. What are success stories where we've done something like what we would do on a much larger scale, and how can we put that in words in a half a paragraph in the proposal because we don't have much space. So why don't we do this? And let's go through these, and let's just call them high, low, and medium. And we'll come up with a few high-profile issues. So we have a big team. Is that a big deal, a little deal, or somewhere in the middle?
I think absolutely for sure we need to know what the actual outcome is going to be, because that's something we've been talking about, and it's not been addressed yet. What is the actual?
So I'm hearing this is a high importance. Yeah. What is the outcome? And we got another one in here too. So that's a high one too.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a big team. Is that meh? Low. Okay. We must show governance and measurement. High. That's a big deal. Okay. We're fractured. Medium. We have a conservative culture in the industry. Low. We need to have, it needs to be credible implementation and fully implemented. So, that's an outcome, right? So that's high. Buy-in from users. High, because that's the outcome. Industry moves slow. Lack of access to data. I'm sorry?
Wouldn't that be part of the outcome that we are trying to change?
That we have lack of access to data? Yeah. So that, we're already seeing some things bend together here. We have a highly regulated industry. Medium. Water is taken for granted. It's low. Lack of elected officials on the team. Low. Or I heard a medium, low, medium. Lack of agricultural community participation. High issue, okay. Aging workforce. That's high. The depth of our technical expertise in some of these areas. I'm sorry? So how is aging workforce a weakness? Who's Yeah. And that's not uncommon, depending on how you frame it, right? So
Well, I would add, it can be considered a weakness because, I'm right here, hi.
Hi.
I would note that I think it can be a weakness because as we have these people retiring, we don't have succession plans in place, and you have decades of institutional knowledge just walking out the door, and we're left behind to make the mistakes that have been made over and over again.
Right. So we have aging workforce as a threat here, or a weakness here, but it's also an opportunity.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah, that's not a weakness for our proposal, right? That's a weakness for our sector, but not for this proposal. It's an opportunity for the proposal.
Sure.
Okay.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Got it. Okay. Depth of expertise in emerging technology is low. I can if you'd like. It's gone. Depth of emerging technology expertise.
So who is actually on the team? Like from the universities, do you have data scientists on the team? Do you have, computer analysts, all of these people? So
Amazon's not in the room here. Google's not in the room here.
Yeah, social scientists, economists.
All right, so let me give you in the team, we got criticism because we don't have good social scientists in it. We do have very strong data scientists from Carnegie Mellon, UVA, University of Illinois Urbana, some from Virginia Tech. So data scientists is not an issue. The real we got criticism is we do have in our team social scientists, but they consider not really again, social scientists, I'm not expecting that, but there are many varieties of social scientists I learned. So just putting a social scientist is not enough. So we are definitely looking for one good social scientist.
So you're saying this is not an issue?
What?
The technical expertise is not an issue?
No, I think that was the different question. That was not a team, that was lack, right?
Yeah, I think it's that we have demonstrated actual implementation.
Right, so that's a different...
That's different than academic
implementation.
Exactly.
This is actual credibility of implementing artificial...
So depth of emergent tap implementation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a different than what...
Different issue. Okay, I got it. All right, so Are we really concerned about that one? Is that medium, low, high?
So I have a question. How are you integrating different vendors into the proposal? So I'm assuming you're not going to write all of the software required to get the outcome that you're looking for. You're going to integrate some existing software. Is that correct?
Yes.
So are vendors part of the team, or is there? Do you have a way of choosing which software packages you're going to start to use? Is that because that goes back to the question of depths of knowledge and outcomes?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't have right now.
The innovation ecosystem.
Right, but we haven't talked innovation ecosystem in this. That's why we need to talk. That the NSF, the one pillar is innovation ecosystem, and that's where they want us a really good roadmap and who will we engage, what time they will be engaged. Some vendors may be engaged in the first 5 years, some will come later on. That we need, and that's what John was saying. Should we have one separate? I was thinking we have to have one separate workshop on just innovation ecosystem and workforce development.
Right.
Because that's a big pillar. Just like we are talking a lot of research, innovation ecosystem and workforce development in itself will be a big theme.
So we're running up against, it's 5:20 now, so.
Yeah, 5:30 we have to wrap.
So in respect for everybody's time, so what do we think about these remaining issues? So we haven't demonstrated emerging tech implementation.
I think the innovation ecosystem, if that's done well, it addresses that item.
Okay, so both of these are high then? Okay. And then sustainability of the center.
Medium.
That's high. And then social scientists, we've got to address that somehow. But if we look at this, we see some things that we talked about again and again. They have to do with the implementation, right? Sir.
Just an observation. If you can address the squishy problem, then you're going to solve a lot of these other weaknesses. And what I mean by that is, if you can say in your proposal how you're going to change the world at the end of 10 years and address the fact that right now the idea is squishy, a lot of these other things will start to fall into place. So I think, if I was going to spend a lot of effort now, it would be trying to answer the question is, how am I moving the needle at the end of the 10-year funding period? And you have to make a compelling case to the NSF that's what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And then I think the rest of these weaknesses start to really fall into place.
I would like to supplement that. Maybe we can show a graphic that shows what that 10-year outlook is, and then we can probably show where we are, how disparate we are, and then have these different goals, the resilience and all that getting achieved to implement your programmatic roadmap that you just said. So maybe that's where we need to begin, and then we can start talking about how, who are the people, how are we going to achieve that. So to start with, like what Amit was mentioning, begin with the end in the mind, like 10 years from now, this is what we envision this watershed is going to look like. And this is where we are right now. And these are the benefits of being that way. And this is how we will achieve it.
That's a squishy thought, right?
Yes. Well, isn't that what we are trying to solve? Yeah.
Right. So obviously, this is a big challenge, and our brains are all full, and it's leaking out a little bit out of our ears at this point. So what we're going to suggest is that I'll work with Sunil, and we'll come up with a nominal workshop schedule, and we'll talk to folks that are interested in hosting. If you are interested in hosting, please make sure Sunil is aware of it. We would like to make it a bit of a road show if we can. And then we'll do that, and we'll send it out to the group, and we'll talk through it and massage it to make it what you all want.
Just one last thing. Is there a way that we could start developing some sort of an outline of what this final product that we will be submitting going to look like? That's also will help us drive, okay, these are the holes that we haven't addressed, or we can keep adding and editing, but at least have some kind of an outline. Okay, we need to talk about this. These are the pieces that we need to have.
You're talking about the proposal outline.
Proposal outline itself, because I know it's a year from now, but if we have that outline, even if it's two-page document that.
So just so for the way it works is the pre-proposal, which is 12 pages,
Right.
is due in January of next year, January 2021.
21, okay.
21. Not next year, year after next. And then if we're selected for a full proposal, that would be July. And that's about 30 pages. It's got some more detail in it. I think our issue is not going to be coming up with 12 pages. I think our issue is going to be
Full.
being able to tell our proposal in 12 pages that is compelling. So.
But I think the point here is that it's not going to be an issue to come up with it, but if we have it, it can help us start adding meat.
So I will take for action to start working for an outline for both of those.
Right.
And we'll go from there.
Right. And there is a third step also, which we missed, is the site visit where they will come like this. The NSF team will come and they will talk to all the stakeholders. So that is also very important before they write a check. So, yeah.
Because I can understand how you want to show you went and spoke to a lot of different communities, but if you want to move this to the next step of this group, then I think it would be advantageous to see what else is put on our calendar. Opposite the Bahamas.
They have water. Right, water. No, right. But what John, before you guys, what John is mentioning is that we will try to set up through Zoom or web meeting so that we can discuss a couple of these things before we decide where our second workshop or third workshop, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also we will create a Google Drive that Kathy is going to help us with that so that you have access to all presentations and everything, proposal, whatever we create. Great. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. We really appreciate this. We got a lot of good feedback, so that was good.